Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Faith Mangope, and I'm coming to you live from the AFI Atelier. Well, welcome to the AFI In Conversations, where this afternoon we get to expand further around the modeling industry, simply titled Getting into the Modeling Industry, Finding Your Niche, and I'm going to add and thriving in the industry. This afternoon we're going to be hearing from our industry experts who are going to really be expounding about the realities that are involved in getting yourself into the modeling industry as a model, how exactly to position yourself as a brand that is attractive to potential clients, and more importantly, how to sustain yourself, how to look at yourself as a business and sustain your business in that regard. It promises to be a fantastic afternoon filled with lots of laughter, lots of sharing, lots of vulnerability as we really get to start exploring with absolute authenticity about the business of fashion, but more importantly, the business of modeling. Come along with us and we look forward to having you in conversation. So it is my absolute honor and privilege this afternoon to introduce to you our panelists as I'll be officially taking you through it. Starting off with Bryan. Mala is a multifaceted entrepreneur, model, and advocate for diversity, originally from the Caribbean island of St. Lucia and now based in Cape Town, South Africa. Her career spans international modeling, business ownership, creative storytelling through her unique doll collection. And I actually want us to get into that, the diversification of sectors of industry once you've managed to put your foot into the sector of industry of modeling. So do stick around for that one. We're also joined by Bisi Sowemimo, who is Bisi Sowemimo, fondly known, is a celebrated Nigerian model, talent scout, as well as agent who has carved a remarkable path in the fashion industry with close to 2 decades of experience, by the way. Bisi's career spans international runways, high fashion editorials, behind the scene roles, as well as nurturing the next generation of modeling talent. And I want you to all tune into the next generation of modeling talent, because I think that that's going to be very pertinent to this conversation this afternoon. Our third panelist, of course, is Mutaleni Ya Toivo, who is Mutaleni is a model, architect, and an advocate for body positivity. Originally from Namibia, is now based in Johannesburg, South Africa, where she seamlessly blends her passion for architecture as well as burgeoning career in the modeling industry. Remember, we were speaking about diversification earlier. Well, these women are really the personification of such. Well, it is such an absolute privilege to get into this conversation with you. And maybe, Mala, let me start off with you from the get-go. Just talk to us a little bit about the first time, when you got into acquaintanceship, I call it, with the modeling industry. How did you get into modeling?
I was actually one of the many, I would say, people that was picked off the street and placed into an industry that I actually was not even interested in. I got scouted off the street, and it literally happened like this. A couple months later, I went to Paris for a modeling competition where I ended up winning a modeling contract, and I started my modeling career from there. So I started with my natural hair. It wasn't a look that they were able to work with. It was very horrible the first year of it. So I think the first 3 months I was sent home. And I didn't give up. I went back because I still had to finish the contract. That happened in Miami. And I went back with a new look. I relaxed my hair, put in some weave, went back, and it was the look that was accepted. That was like 22 years ago, and I'm still here.
It really is about the diversification, and you said some real key points I want us to touch on as the conversation threads through this afternoon. So I definitely want us to touch note on certain issues, especially around image and what is deemed as what they are looking for. But let me go to you as well, Bisi, your journey and how you got acquainted with this within this industry.
So I came into the modeling industry through my cousin. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be a basketball player because I grew up with 5 brothers, and doing modeling was not something that I really wanted to do. I didn't even know about modeling. So for me, it was about like playing basketball, getting into sports, until my cousin just thought, why don't you just try modeling? And I was like, what is that? But anyway, she got me introduced to one of her friends that was more of a commercial model, but she couldn't really help me because she obviously saw that I was I would fit more into the fashion space. So she introduced me to another friend of hers that was a model and a designer at the time. And that's how my modeling career started. I started training. And then a couple of years later, I entered into a competition called the Fashion TV Model Awards. And I won that competition. And I went to Paris as well. I think Mala said she also went to Paris. And it also wasn't great for me. I got a modeling contract in Paris. For the first month, it was a little bit tough. I went back to Nigeria, and then I went back to Paris for another 2 months, and it was very difficult. And A friend, I think I did like one job, but I went to a lot of castings, and a friend of mine was like, why don't you try South Africa? And then I came here, and that really opened up a lot of doors for me, even to be able to go from South Africa to Milan, to back to Paris, to go to New York, and to go to London as well. So yeah, I started modeling through my cousin, but basketball was what I wanted to do. Because of my height, I thought that would have been the best thing to do, not modeling. So that's how I got started.
I tell you one thing, it's a definitely very interesting journey, and I love that that you speak about. This is what I wanted to do, but I ended up here. I think it's a story of many of us, how we thought life would go one way, and then of course you just find that life gives you a pivot and it goes a different way. And for you, Mutaleni?
So I have always wanted to be a model, but I've never been the socially accepted standard size. I knew that I had to lose weight when I was younger if I really wanted to model. But I was just a kid and I was just living life. So that didn't happen. But throughout the years, I worked on myself, and I looked up to Ashley Graham, who's a plus size model. She's from Nebraska, but she predominantly works in the US. Mm-hmm. And I looked up to her and I was like, if she can do it, why can't I do it? But like in Africa, or rather starting from Africa, because I am half American, but I grew up and I was born in Namibia and thought that I should start here and also be a voice. So in 2019, I walked in a private show. It was the end of Fashion Week in Namibia. I was the only plus size model, and I was content. I wasn't content, but I was okay that I was, that there was representation in that fashion show. But from then it just escalated and I haven't looked back.
Well, that is amazing. And I thank you very much to all three of you for sharing your stories. And I want to go straight into it. I think, Mala, let's start off with you. When you're saying that it was not very easy. In fact, I went home, because I think that a lot of people that are, and young people especially, who are aspiring to get into the modeling industry, sometimes get into it with a little bit of naivety. And when you don't know what you're preparing for, you often end up ill-prepared. So just talk to us a little bit about some of the naiveties that we need to be aware of, or some of those, those lessons now that you've had to learn, and maybe you've had to learn the hard way, because you were, like many other women, Black African women, you're the one of first, from a look perspective, from an image perspective, from a brand perspective. But just talk to us a little bit about what do we need to know and understand to break the naivety when it comes to the modeling industry?
Okay, so when I started with natural hair, but that was 21 years ago. So that was 21 years ago. So times are very, very different now. So my experience, I can talk about it, but it's not as relevant as I would say now. So what we went through and what it's probably I would say changed what models are experiencing now. It's a lot easier now, let me say that. But the main thing and the main takeaway I can say, I grew up on an island, 180,000 people population. I knew nothing about modeling or anything like that. I wanted to be in the hospitality industry. When I moved to a different island, they were a bit more exposed. It was Saint Martin, where, it's part of France. So people were a bit more exposed to fashion, magazines and things like that I did not grow up with. And so when I got placed into the industry, and when I went on my first trip to Miami, it was, what's a casting? What's this? Now kids have, models and people have more access to having and knowing the age of information, a lot of these things. So by the time they get into the industry, they have much more knowledge now, right? What I can say, and the only advice I can probably give now is, if it's something that you really want, there is an agency and there is a space for almost everybody now in the industry. It is a bit more diverse. It's a bit difficult. I had to travel to many, many countries to find a place that accepted me for my skin color. There are probably still some markets that are still a bit more difficult. I'll say a Black model cannot really go to Japan or to Asia. That probably still exists. But South Africa was one of the places that really accepted models of color. And so that's why my agent first sent me here. And that's why 17 years later, I'm still here. So it's just a lot easier now. So my thing and my only advice I can give is, not giving up and just finding an agency that's good for you. And once you find an agency that's good for you, then you find your space and your market. If that make, I don't know if that, let me just try to make sense. So for example, I'm now 43 years old. My market is not much of a young high fashion anymore. I'm now a bit more mature, so I'd probably now be getting into facial products, that kind of thing. So just know that there is a space, find your market. It's not that difficult. Now, no, it's not that difficult. Before, we did not have access to many things. Yeah. So we had to fly to different countries to know where our markets were and things like that. So it's a lot easier now, let me say. So when I started with natural hair, didn't work. Agencies did not know what to do with me. They cut all of my hair off. They did not know what to do with me. So that's why they sent me home. They cut my hair off and like, oh, it doesn't work. They knew nothing about wigs. They didn't know anything about extensions then. So they just sent me home. And somehow I just relaxed my hair, put in a weave, and for them, I looked totally different. And it was the look that worked then. Now, of course, as things started, I found my look and it became, my thing. But it's a lot easier now, let me say.
Well, let's make that comparison. And Bisi, I want to invite you into this one to look at the then versus the now. Let's just talk a little bit about the role that you believe social media plays in being able to amplify the diversity that exists, and amplify the opportunities and the access, which perhaps was not even privy to you, the years ago that when you started specifically. Just talk to us a little bit about that, the role that social media could potentially play, and how is it that we get to take advantage of spaces like social media? I mean, I remember I come from a generation when models, shows my age, but when I was, I knew that models had to be spotted on the street. They had to be scouted. You get scouted on the street. You were seen walking and somebody came up to you and said, hey, would you like to join a modeling agency? But things are a little bit different now. So the comparison from the then and the now, and the role that social media could potentially play in amplifying some of this access that we talk about.
Definitely, social media has had like a huge impact on our industry. And I think it's a good way for models to be able to also show their talents through social media. Because when we started, if you go to a casting, you have to carry like a physical book with you, and the clients have to actually look through that, which was very difficult because every single place that you go to, you have to carry this book around, whether you go overseas or wherever. But I think with social media, it's given models now to be able to showcase their talent in a much broader way. And it's a way for clients also to be able to see, because I know there was a time where a lot of clients also they want to see what you're doing on your social media. And I think it's just giving more access to that, which is a good way, because before all you had was your magazine and your book. And if you're not on the website, then the clients don't have the access to that. But at least now, if you have a social media page, they can go on that. And also, you still have to be very careful with the things that, you post on social media, because clients don't always want to, be included in that. Like if you're posting nonsense on your social media, they don't want to work with that. I think it's a way where models can be able to showcase their talents in a much broader way. And when we at the agency, we also have, like with the models, we have to put their Instagram handles on the website so the clients can have quick access to it. Like even if they can check what they have on their website, but they can also see what the models are actually doing on social media as well, to see if they actually want to work with that. So I would say it has its pros and cons. They have the negative side and the positive side, because some models don't always know what to post on social media. And with our models, we also tell them as well, just be very careful what you post on social media. But also, like, you've had models, maybe if they want to work with like skincare, I know like Mala was also saying, like, with the age where she is now, she works a lot with like skincare brands and stuff. You can have models you don't have to have the clients approach you first. You can, if you want to work with Nivea, you can start posting something about Nivea and saying something about it, and they can see like, okay, maybe this is somebody that we can work with. So I think it has its positive side, and I think it's a great way that clients, not just in the country that you're in, because obviously social media is everywhere. You can have clients overseas as well see what you're doing. So I think it has its a positive side for sure. And it's helped a lot of models to be able to also just showcase their brand.
And I love the fact that you spoke about branding, because I want us to deep dive a little bit further into that in just a while, around how do you position your brand so that you are able to attract these clients that you're speaking about. But Mutaleni, I think also it's around being able to diversify one's end. and still being able to find your niche. And while you're finding your niche and thriving in your niche, you're able then to diversify the offering so that you're not known for just one thing. Just talk to us a little bit about that, about how do you start diversifying? How do you locate the niche, capitalize on the niche, and then also go into the realm of diversification?
I think that because my niche is plus size modeling, it doesn't stop there. Regardless of the body that I am, and the size that I am, every woman in the world wants to see themselves being represented in these spaces.
Yeah.
So that calls for opportunity and then leading to the diversification of everything. It's just that because society and maybe the Western world from back in the day didn't really focus on plus size women in those industries, it's like a space that is still new, relatively new, and tapping into those spaces requires a lot of work and not giving up. I'm not somebody that gives up very easily, but because I am passionate about what I do and what I stand for, although it's hard, and there are a lot of times where I have cried because I do feel excluded, but because I know it's important, it helps me continue my advocacy or my journey. But in terms of, I haven't really found the versatility I can go into just yet. I'm still exploring that, but I think it's an exciting time because I think there's room for everybody.
How do you even think of yourself as a brand and position yourself as a brand so that you are attractive to scouts, to agencies, to potential clients? I mean, we were speaking a bit earlier on about the role of social media and how we can capitalize on that access of social media, free access, by the way, to millions of eyes. But in order for you to get that access, you need to position yourself in a way that is attractive enough for those brands. Just talk to us a little bit about how do we start? Where do we start with that?
I think I do come across a lot of models that don't know anything about the industry. They come in and they want to be a brand. It doesn't work that way. You have to start from somewhere. You have to start small. You do see models that want to start and they want to go overseas already. But you need to start somewhere. First, you need to learn about the industry. I think there's something, no matter what you want to do in life, it's always good to learn the skills. If you want to be a doctor, whatever you want to do. But a lot of people come into the industry and they just want to start off like that. I want to be a brand. I want to do this. I want to do that. But my advice is always just to start small. And even before you join an agency, do your research. Whatever agency you want to join, whether you're going to be in the commercial space or you're going to be in the fashion space. We do get a lot of pictures and you're just you can see that those people haven't done their research before even joining an agency because of the kind of pictures that they send in. You can see models sending pictures in and they have their glasses on. And you're just they're not facing the camera. And you're just you're trying to go into an industry where it's all about your face and image and all of that, but you're not even showing that. So before you go in, at least do your research and start small. So for me, don't just come into the industry and all of a sudden you want to be a brand. Do the small jobs and the odd jobs, something that can help you get your foot into the industry. And if you have to even take some courses, to help you, because the fashion, I would say it's a little bit easy, not really, but in the commercial space, it's all about performance. You have to know how to perform in front of the camera. It's not always easy when you go to a TV commercial casting and that red light comes on, the nerves kicks in, and it's all about performance based. So you need to know all of those things coming into the industry. You need to practice. Once you join an agency and you do your test shoots and they send you scripts, don't learn the scripts when you get to the casting. You have to know all of those things before you even get to the casting. So all those little things, knowing what to wear to a casting, knowing how to do your makeup, knowing how to do your hair, knowing how to show up. Because when you go to a casting, you're not just representing yourself, you're representing your agency, you're representing other models that are within that agency. So the little things about, okay, if I'm going to go to a fashion show casting, I know I have to wear something that shows up my body and I have to wear black. If I go to a TV commercial casting, I have to show up based on the picture reference that they've sent to me. I have to know the script. I have to know even how to do an introduction. And I've been to a casting before where you see models and the agency sometimes don't always have the time to train you. So you have to do your own research. You have to know all of those things about the industry. Like I always say people see the glamorous side of the industry. They see the finished products, but they don't know the amount of work that actually goes in. Even just doing fashion shows, people don't think that there's a skill that comes with walking on the runway. I hear people tell me like, but you just walk down the runway and you get paid. I'm like, girl, it's not that easy. You know, people see the TV commercials and they see the magazines and they see the finished products, but you have to put in the work. You have to do your research. You have to learn. You have to practice. So don't just come into the industry and all of a sudden want to be a brand. You have to do the work. You have to put in the work. You have to learn about the industry. And from there, clients will start noticing you. If you go on the set of a TV commercial and you're professional, or you go to a fashion show and you're being professional, from there, clients will want to relate with you. They want to work with you. And from there, you're able to put yourself out there with the work that you've done. You can post it on your social media and other people can see that. So don't just come in and say, I want to be a brand. Start small, start from somewhere. So for me, that would be my advice. Like, it's not just coming into the industry and boom, it's just gonna, because it doesn't happen like that. It's a lot of work. I said I went to Paris. It happened to Mala as well, where it was just very difficult, but we had to put in the work. We had to learn. When I came to South Africa, I had to learn from the people that were there before me. Like, if we're doing a fashion show and we're doing rehearsals and I feel like I'm not working well, I go to the models that have been there before me to ask them, like, what do you think I did wrong? Or I go to the producers, like, what do you think I did wrong? Just to learn. You know, not just coming in and like, boom, it's going to happen like that. Just learn from the people that are there already.
You know, we'd say in corporate, don't expect the corner office when you get in. You know, learn how to make a cup of coffee. Yeah, don't get in with the naivety that you're going to get the corner office. Learn to make a cup of coffee. Mala, you know, I love this part of the conversation because I want us to talk about money. It's often a difficult conversation to speak about, but it is such a necessary conversation in this one. Let's talk about the money, Mala. Let's talk about what are the expectations from an earning perspective, you know, and also I think let's talk about the business, because when I look at the conversation that we are having now, I'm having a conversation with not just 3 women, but 3 businesses, you know, because you are entities and you are businesses. So let's talk a little bit about that, about how to carry yourself as a business, how to charge as a business, you know, and the expectations in carrying yourself like a business.
I think it was 2006 or 7 when I bought malabryan.com because I was like, yeah, I want to be a brand, but I bought my domain name from then. Although I was still very shy, I was like, okay, this was just for the future. When I first started, that first 3 months before I was sent home, I was $25,000 in debt to the agency. because they prepay for everything.
Yeah.
Lights, you come there broke, so you need pocket money. They need to advance you money, and on top of that money, you're getting interest charged. If you get an advance, you're being charged. You know, you come in and you're owing, right? And when I first saw that, I negotiated to pay half of it when I came back, because when they're like, well, you actually do ours. And I can talk being in the US or in Europe, you're making US dollars and the clients do pay very well. So after a couple of jobs, I managed to pay off my debt and I started making money, right? It didn't start off, it probably took me like 2-3 years, because it's like you're investing in yourself. You pay for everything from websites to com cards to cards to every print to anything, because there are people in an office like Bisi that, you know, they you know, you've got to pay your bookers a salary, your agency a salary, everything. And so I went in there thinking I was gonna be a millionaire like in a month. Didn't happen. But when I started, there was an older model there, and she taught me about me being self-employed. But I do have agents that represent me. So you can't just do anything. You can't just say yes to anything. I learned from early on, if you need me, you need to talk to my agent. And if I want to do something on the side, my agency has to know. You can't just have an agent and then sign a contract and you want to do whatever it is that you want because somebody decides not to go through an agency so that they can avoid paying the agency fee. So there's a lot of that as well. And I just want to hop onto what Bisi was saying earlier. There's a level of professionalism that needs to happen with models. You need a model bag. You need to be professional. You got to have your heels. You got to have everything. You don't want to enter a space and you're not professional. So that goes to your social media feed. Okay, so me as a brand, if you go on my social media page now, you'll understand why I probably dominated Mother's Day. All the Mother's Day campaigns came because, you know, it's now about me and my kids. When I launched my line of dolls, it was like, okay, my photos can't be, I didn't delete my past, okay, but it became different. I felt different when I started the dolls line because now I have a children's brand. So I just felt differently about what I posted on my social media and even sometimes the kind of jobs that I was taking. So we have to keep all of that in mind. People have to keep all of that in mind. But my main thing that I want to say is have a certain level of respect for, if you do this, get into an agency, make sure there's respect with your agents. You know, so I love and respect my agencies, and they know that clients are looking at your social media feed. They will know if there are certain clients that will actually ask if you've done FHM. I'm just talking old thing, like, you know, if you've done certain magazines, because they're not going to book you. Because they don't want that image. They have a family image that they want to maintain, and so they won't book you, even if you just shot for a lingerie. Something very, very simple. But so keeping a lot of, we have to keep a lot of things in mind. So when I say it's easy, I just want to touch base on that. Sometimes just like hair. So whenever now I've braided my hair whenever I go to a casting, because it's instilled in me, I'll still tell them, but this is not how I'm going to come to work. I've just put these braids in because back then we couldn't braid our hair. We couldn't get colored nails done. Models nowadays, when I say they have it easy, it's nice and easy. You know, having braids, going to work with braids. Clients here accept it. But if you want to do this overseas, that mentality is going to have to cut off and get a look, build your portfolio around that look. And whenever you go to work, those hair pieces, that wig, whatever it is, needs to be with you when you go to work, because that's who the client is expecting to show up. So when it came to building my brand, that's what I did. I had a look, and that's probably the look you'd still find on my website, on the agency's website, and that's the look I go for. So it's like, yeah, when my agent, they'll send you a picture, it's like, do you still have? I'm like, yeah, I've got that wig. So got to be professional and keep it professional.
All right, ladies, let's take some questions from our guests this afternoon. It is all about them after all. Let me start off. Mutaleni, I'm going to give you the first one. It's questions from Spamandla Nyembe from Johannesburg. Does modeling limit you, e.g. height, weight, and if it does, can there be any program of raising awareness of it in order to create and provide opportunities for those who are variously disadvantaged in the industry? Does it limit you, height, weight? Mutaleni, this one is over to you.
I would say to a certain extent, yes, it does limit you. I think it depends on if you were to find a niche, which niche you're willing to go in or in which direction. If you're wanting to do runway, there's a particular height for females and a particular height for males. If you don't meet that requirement, unfortunately, you just don't meet the cut. Weight, I think it's pretty much I wouldn't say it's the same, but I don't think people really look at weight. They would really categorize you into standard body size or plus size. I have not encountered very many male plus size models in Africa. I know they exist in other parts of the world, and I'm sure there is definitely space and room for platforms to incorporate, like, what's the word? Those that are disadvantaged in those things into these spaces, because at the end of the day, there is room, like I've said, there is room for everybody. And at the end of the day, also, you would want to see somebody that looks like you in a magazine, in a poster or a billboard or whichever, in Mr. Price or on a billboard. So it's just, someone has to start that. I personally don't really know platforms that exist that do that. I know with AFI, they are quite inclusive when it comes to including or being inclusive to plus size models and standard body size models. I think SA Fashion Week also does the same. but I think there's room for improvement for both entities.
Yeah.
I just don't really know of other platforms right now that I guess guide or that would help with people that are, if it's overweight or
Height.
or height.
And I like that as well. I think you're giving us a very honest perspective of like how far we still have to go in the industry where diversification and inclusion is actually concerned. Can I take Olorato from Gaborone in Botswana? Hi, Olorato. This is another question. Maybe, Bisi, let's take this one with you. Is there really significant use to be signed to an agent, especially in a country you're hardly based in? Would they cover all the traveling costs and all for the casting calls and shows? Also, how to spot a good agency? I like that question. How do you spot a good agency? Bisi?
Okay, so it's always good to have an agency because the agencies protect you. But if you assign to an agency in a different country, I think Mala did mention this already. Even if they cover all the costs, you're still gonna have to pay it back. You're gonna have to work to pay it back. Like she said, she was like $25,000 in debts, and she had to pay that off. So sometimes the agency might cover the cost because they believe in you and they see the potential. And when I had to go to Milan a couple of years ago, I had to pay my own way because I didn't want the agency to pay all of that. But even if they do, you're gonna have to pay everything back. They might pay for your accommodation, pay for your flights and all of that. But they expect that when you get there, you have to work. So they send you to the castings and you have to go to every single casting because they pay for you to be there. And that's the reason that you were there. When I was in Milan, I used to live in a model house, and they would bring those models from like Poland, or they bring them from Russia because it's in Europe, and they give them 2 weeks to be able to do something because they paid for everything for them to be there. So if you don't get a job within 2 weeks, they're gonna send you back because they're paying for everything. So they're gonna be out of pocket if you don't go to your castings, if you're not doing anything. So it is good to have agencies, because I do know models that have agencies in Milan and Paris and New York, and that gives them an opportunity to be able to travel to all those places. But I would say not all agencies are willing to do that, because there's no guarantee that when you get there, you're going to book a job. There's never a guarantee in modeling. You still have to go to the casting. You still have to show up. So I would say even if they do pay, you have to get there, you have to work, but it's not all agencies that are willing to do that. So yeah, that can be difficult. And how to spot a good agency, you just have to do your research. You have to know. Go online, check out their website, see the work that they've done. And that's why social media now, it's a good thing, because you can also, every agency has an Instagram. So you can also go on their Instagram, you can see the work that their models have done. You can check out their models on their own personal Instagram and see the work that they've done. So always do your research, and there's a lot of reviews as well about agencies. So and you can also hear people talk, you can ask questions. And I tell models this as well, that before you join an agency, also ask models within that agency what they've done and what the agency is like. Don't just go and just join any agency. So ask questions from the models that have been within the agency, like what is this agency like? And yeah, I mean, you hear about agencies all the time. So do your research, go online, call the agencies, check out their Instagram, check out their website, ask models questions before you end up signing with an agency.
I like this. Slip into their DMs, but for the purpose of research. More likely when it comes to that. I like that. I've got another one from Precious Laka from Johannesburg. Maybe let's bring it to you, Mala. Precious asks how to navigate and stay afloat as a model, especially with our industry being a numbers game. Numbers gets you in instead of talent. Maybe let's say that as a model, especially in the industry where it's being a numbers game, number gets you in instead of talent. Maybe also looking here at numbers of social media following, because I know that when the more people have got a following and 1.2 million followers, how do you navigate that space where, it's a numbers game ultimately, and how do you stay afloat in the industry?
If you're a model with an agency, your social media page, it's only necessary because clients want to see you, but it does not. Some clients look at numbers, majority of the clients don't. So it's not something that I don't even worry about it. Like, sometimes the agency does remind me to post so that the clients can see more recent posts, but I don't worry about my numbers, so it's different because I think this is coming more from an influencer point of thing than from a model. As a model thing, our numbers on social media does not matter, to be honest with you. So, yeah.
That was when that was a trend. There was a time when that was a trend, and all of those clients, I mean, the way trends are, everybody was jumping on the fact that, you have to have social media following, because if you do a job and you get to post it on your social media and you have a lot of followers, it's free marketing for the clients as well. But honestly, I really do believe as well that it's based on your talents, because when it comes to TV commercials, clients don't care about what your social media has, because sometimes you can do some jobs that you're not even allowed to post on your social media. So it has to be about your performance. You have to go to the castings, you have to show the clients what they want. It was more about the fashion side when that whole trend of having a huge social media following was a thing, but it's not really a big thing anymore, and it's got to do more with influencers, like Mala said.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I didn't really cave on there was that pressure. You're right, and now I'm thinking about it, but I didn't really cave. It's like,
it's not a big thing anymore.
I'm like I was at the point where my word speaks for itself, so I'm good.
100%.
Yeah.
I believe that everybody that is listening, that is aspiring to be exactly where you are, is saying, I want the one day I also want to say my work speaks for myself, so I'm good. I've got another question coming in from Liza from Cape Town saying, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given as a model in the industry that has helped you become the success you are today? Mutaleni, let me give you that one. What is the best piece of advice you've ever been given as a model in the industry that has helped you become the success you are today?
It has been to never give up, because I'm still figuring out my journey and on my journey. And because I stand for what I stand for, it's a difficult space and a difficult environment to be strong about and be motivated about. But it's to never give up, because if I believe in what I believe and it's a passion, then I'll definitely not give up.
Plain and simple. I love it, but very effective. Andy Sue has also got another question for us from Johannesburg saying, how do I become and make money as a talent manager in the modeling industry, and how do I remain competitive? Bisi, let me give you that one, and then maybe Mala, if you want to add in, how do I become and make money as a talent manager in the modeling industry?
First, if you're opening an agency, of course you want to make money, but I mean, you have to find the clients for your models, because if your models are working, then you get to make money. If you don't have models, and your models are not going to, you have models within your agency, you have to make sure that they go to their castings, because if the models are not going to the castings, clients are not seeing them, and you as a talent manager, you're not making any money. So first of all, I felt like maybe not focus too much on making money, but just focus on getting more clients for your models, because at the end of the day, it's about the models, but definitely it's about getting the clients for your models and making sure that your models are going to their castings, and which can be a very difficult thing, because even for the models as well, especially when it comes to TV commercial castings, sometimes you have to go sit down there for 2-3 hours before it's your turn. And a lot of people don't have that patience. And that's why I tell people sometimes as well that if you don't have patience, don't be a model, because it requires a lot of patience. And sometimes the models probably have other things to do. Maybe they're in school, maybe they have part-time jobs, and getting them to castings can be a very difficult thing. But yeah, I would say if you're trying to make money, make it more about the business first before you look at the money side of it. But it's definitely more about getting more clients and making sure that your models are going to the castings. And once the models are going to the castings and doing the jobs, then the bookings are coming in and you're getting your cuts. So yeah, look more about getting the business first and creating relationship with clients.
There's another side of that where you can actually be a mother agent to models, and you can get a 10% of but it depends. So basically, you can, if you are able to have a good eye and discover great models, you can approach agencies and place your models there, and then you can actually get a percentage of what the agencies make from when the models work. So there is that as well. And that it's not just here in South Africa, it's all over the world, where most agencies do work with mother agents and stuff like that. So, but you would have to have a good eye for great models and models that that can work, because the more your model work, the more money you make. And that's actually how all agencies work. But mother agency, I would look into that. And I used to be a mother agent at one point.
So I want to give you just a moment just to wrap up your thoughts, just around, maybe let's start with this. I love the question that was asked about what was one piece of advice that you were given, and I'm gonna ask the three of you. Maybe we can go into that around what if I had to ask you what advice, one piece of advice that you would give anyone who's aspiring to be a model, who's listening to this conversation right now and thinking, sure guys, I hear you, it's a very sobering conversation, where do I start? What would you say to them?
I would definitely say do 1 or 2 courses in maybe commercial acting. And yeah, I don't know that many stills courses for stills, but I would definitely say commercial acting, because that's where the money's at.
Do 1 or 2 courses in commercial acting.
Commercial acting, yeah, because then that can, go into other things. But definitely, that's one of the things I'd say. Eventually, it helped me a lot with castings.
Mala, you are.
That's where the money's at.
That's where the money's at. Mala is for the money this afternoon. I like it. Bisi, a piece of advice.
I think for me, once you get into the industry and you find an agency, you get in there. For me, one of the biggest things, I don't think it was an advice, but it was something that I had to learn, is building relationships, because you never know where your next job is coming from. Once you build relationship with makeup artists and other models even, and or hairstylists, and humility also goes a long way in this business. Like, you have to be humble, because they're really not looking for divas in this industry as much as a glamorous industry. But for me, one of the biggest things that has helped me is being able to build relationships with people in the industry, because it's a small industry and people talk. So if you're a good model, somebody's gonna be like, oh my gosh, Mala is amazing, you should work with her. I worked with Mala, she was awesome, you should book her. So for me, once you get into the industry, build relationships with people, not suck up to people, but build relationships. And that would be
don't suck up, build relationships and make it meaningful and authentic. I love that. Mutaleni, as we bring this to a close, a piece of advice that you would give to that aspirant model who's just listening to the conversation and thinking, okay, ladies, I need to know where to start.
Well, I think I agree with both Mala and Bisi's contributions, 100%. But also, as previously said, don't give up, but also you have to start somewhere before you don't give up, or before you give up. So starting is probably one of the most difficult things, but once you start, it only goes up from there.
Ladies, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Thank you very much for sharing your insights, your journey, for the authenticity within which you've approached this conversation. I think that a lot of people got to learn a little bit further and deep dive into the modeling industry and being an industry, carrying yourself like a business, and more importantly, finding your niche in that and thriving in it, and looking obviously on the other side of the coin around the opportunities for diversifying. Certainly certain nuggets that have been taken in around being careful about what you post and being careful and being aware of your social media profile. I love what you were saying, Mala, that you have to do courses. This is a study game, and study and learn and create and make your craft intentional, and be intentional about the craft that you're in. So much appreciated for that as well. And we see, more importantly, around finding the agency and being able to scout the agency and knowing that you're part of a bigger whole in this business, that it's not just about you, but there is an entire ecosystem that is working with you to ensure that you are a success. So much appreciated to all of you for your time. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us for AFI In Conversation, looking at the modeling industry and how to find your niche in it and thrive in it. And thank you so much for availing yourselves once again. My name is Faith Mangope. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege for being with you as well. And just a reminder for you that we've also got a Cape Town Fashion Week that is coming up as well. We've got lots of details that will be in store for it. Do look out for it. tonight, Cape Town Fashion Week. You do not want to miss it. Be a part of it all. And it's definitely happening. It is happening next week, so do join in. But get your tickets. Come join us. It's always an evening of fun and always an evening of learning and, more importantly, appreciating the models of fashion and the beauty that is all around us. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Until you and I speak again, have a fantastic rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Faith. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.